The same reason, like, or the same breakdown of a bad habit is the same thing with the good one. There's no choice. You eliminate choice. Think of a bad habit that you have, of like chewing your nails or what. It's like, there's not, I'm going to chew my nails right now. It's like, you just do it. There's no thought into it. There's no choice that's happening. It's just an action that your brain wants to do, like a soothing mechanism or whatever. It's how you deal with stress. That's what your brain figured out to do. That's the same thing with good habits. You have to eliminate the choice. It has to become so second nature. Remember when we used to do 3, 2, 1?
Yes. Not anymore.
Why don't you like it?
Huh?
Why don't you like it?
It just didn't seem natural.
It did seem like natural, but for some reason I'm wanting a ramp up. Like, you know how at awards we do the countdown?
Yes.
It's like 10, and then it's like 1. People come out.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I need that podcast.
Yeah, it feels too production then to me.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
it's like I just want to sit down and like keep chatting like we probably have been.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and watching your mom's house. That's what I was thinking too. Like they like can cue
sure.
it with the music because they can hear it.
Yeah.
But it is not our style.
No, not really.
We're very like, did they just hit record in the middle of a conversation? Because what are they talking about? What does this mean?
Yes. Speaking of which, here's a perfect starter.
Perfect. Okay.
Perfect. What is something that I do that you wish you would do?
Ooh, that's a better question than like, what's something that you don't like, or what's something that I do that annoys you, or whatever.
Yeah.
That's a positive twist. What's something that you do? So it's kind of like the, what's that method that one chick uses? Like the hot shot rule. The president and CEO of AG1 does that. She does that every Sunday where she'll sit down and she'll go, okay, who is someone that I like admire their work, or if it's a personal thing, like their family dynamic. And then I go, okay, if they were in my shoes, in my role, whether that's as like a spouse or a, business, she'll go, if they were in my shoes right now, what would they change or what would they do? And if she can come up with something, she's like 99 times out of 100, she can come up with something, and that's her rule. She then immediately puts it into place. So
yeah, that's cool.
What is something? There's a lot of things that you do. I think this is maybe more of a. I have a lot, but this is the first thing that came to mind that I just like is a reoccurring everyday thing that I notice. You have a very good, your whole family I think kind of has this where like you're really good at figuring things out. And like if you don't know something, you'll go and search for the answers or like figure it. Like you're instruction people. Like you can read instructions and figure out how to do something or figure out how to play a game or figure like I would just, if I don't know already, I'm not going to do it. Like think games. Games are a great example of like tiny nothing matters to how I deal with life. Like if I don't know how to already play the game, you will almost probably not get me to play the game. I had to like fall upon the rules somehow, but if I have to like read an instruction or gather the information, I can't do it. I'm just not good at like the amount of like stress I got in just trying to figure out how many stamps I needed to put on that envelope yesterday. It's like,
yeah.
If I could have given up on that, I would have. It's like, well, not for me. Not going to mail anything.
Probably like most of the stuff. That is such a weird. You wouldn't think it'd be a skill, but like
Man, it is.
You do it enough, like it. You just see the same situations over and over again in a weird way. That correlates. That you just start to get this very broad idea of like how to figure things out in a weird way. Like you just get good at that skill of figuring things out, even though it could be how to put stamps, how many stamps do I need to put on this envelope versus like how do I put together this clothing rack, and everything else. Like it's just kind of like the more you do it, the better you get at that stuff.
Like, even just working through the options, I'm not good at that. Like, even on the weekends, like when the printer won't print, it's like if it's not the first thing I think of, I'm kind of like strung out of options. Like, I don't know how to, like, well, let me think about this, and then I'll maybe come up with something else, or like I'll use that knowledge to help me know how to fix this. Like, it's I either know it or I don't. That I think that opens up so many different opportunities for you because you have a confidence going into things. Or
Sure.
I'm like, I probably won't know how to handle this.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I think it's just like putting yourself in those situations. Not even putting them in there, but like if it is that situation, you're finding a way to figure it out rather than avoiding it, I guess.
Yeah.
It's just like it's learning something new.
Yeah.
That's really all it is.
Yeah.
Like that's probably not a good skill to be like, I'm good. I got everything I want to learn.
No, it's not good. I'm good at that if it doesn't... I'm good at that if I'm like learning new information just to better myself, or like I like reading about things and retaining that like I'm getting better at retaining that information than utilizing it. But something about the instructional part of that where it's like you have to follow this and read this and then immediately replicate that perfectly. Like it's a rule. That's what recipes. That's what I struggle with.
Yeah.
I like being able to kind of wing it with things, but you can't always wing things. You have to follow rules.
Yeah. Well, and I think if you can't see the benefit right away, you kind of are like, like the game thing.
Yeah. And most of those things, like regular adult life things, there isn't a benefit. It's just you have to do it.
You're right.
It's like, oh, I have to fill out this form to pay a ticket or whatever. It's like, I can't just not do this when I can't. Like, I have mailing something yesterday. I had to figure it out.
Yeah.
That, man, do I get frustrated and irritated with myself fast.
Yeah.
Because I just like want the answer. How many stamps do I put on a manila envelope that's this size? I need it. Like, why should I have to read 5 articles that also don't give me the answer?
Yeah. And I think that's just like what I'm almost used to now is you're going to spend a lot more than just like look it up quick. There's so many you're going to have to dig.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. I think for you, even though you might not think you are way more go with the flow, and like you're able to change plans pretty seamlessly to where I'm not good at doing that. Especially when it's related to like work stuff. And that's kind of the other thing is like you are so, if it's work stuff, it's like, okay, yeah, we'll do that. That's fine. You just start going. I'm like reeling in my head. Like, I don't want to do this work, or I don't want to do, like, it's hard for me to say yes to changing the plans, especially when it relates to something with work, that you're so easily able to do that. That it's crazy to me.
I'm almost opposite. Like, if I have to plan something out, then I'll have time to ruminate on it. Or if it's like, can you come in right now and teach 5 classes, or whatever it is, and you got to answer these emails, or you got to send out this email, or blah blah blah. I don't have time to, oh, that's really gonna suck, or I don't really want to have to go in, or I don't know what to do. It's like there's no thought. It's just like it's happening. You're questioned, and then you're doing the action.
And see, I'm only good at the work stuff when I'm already there doing it.
Yeah.
And then they're like, hey, could you stay 2 extra hours?
Because you're
like,
in the zone of it, kind of.
Right.
Yeah.
But if it's like my off day and they're like, hey, so-and-so didn't show up, can you come in for 4 hours? I'm like, ooh, no, you're ruining my whole plan for the day. And my whole plan for the day was to have no plan today. So now you're putting something in there.
Yeah. I'm not as good with that, especially if I have, like, that's the only time I'm not good with work, is if I planned on having nothing to do, or like we were going to go do something and then it interferes. I struggle with it. I think what makes me do it in some of those scenarios where it's not just like an at-home type of work thing is that like savior complex I have. Like, I want to be the one that saves the day. So that forces me to get past the like, well, you are going to go do this today. It's like, yeah, but that's only helping you. If you do this, that's helping someone else. And that like drives me to do it.
Yeah, I don't have that.
But if it's just like, can you go answer these emails or do these? I'm just like, because you need me to do it right now. Like,
right. I have that a little bit of like, oh, I want to help the other person out, but that's fairly new of that coming about.
Sure.
But otherwise, I'm like, how does this work for me?
Yeah, now with that, like the hot shower, it's like hard for me to think of how would I fix that part of me, but it's probably just that, like when a situation arises, trying to be the one that figures it out and fixes it. To where I've gotten really comfortable just coming to you.
Sure, yeah.
That I should get better at going back to like, no, try to figure it out, and then when you're really hitting a dead end, then come to you maybe.
Yeah. Well, to me, in both of those situations, I would approach them the same of like, it's just practice. It's just practicing like saying yes and doing the thing that kind of sucks. It's really it. It's like, if I get asked to come into work kind of thing, it's like, okay, just say yes and do it. It's like, get practice at doing that because, I don't know, you are helping somebody out. Like it's overall positive. I mean, you're helping somebody out. You're maybe getting a little bit more money for doing that. They can rely on you more, so they trust you more with things and maybe will listen to your ideas and that sort of stuff. Like it's pretty positive all around, besides it takes up your time, I guess. But again,
Sure.
It's like, what does that bleed into? What does that lack of doing that bleed into kind of thing? That it's like, oh, I want to be good at that. So if I were to try to change that right now, it's like, okay, when those situations arise, like I'm going to say yes and go. I'm going to say yes and help out.
I know for myself,
practicing that.
Yeah, those moments when I do figure it out, I get such a reward feeling, like the dopamine hits of you figured it out. Like I will take the time to like, okay, that was a very simple task, but you did it by yourself. Like that felt good to figure it out. That typically I could go back to that of like, you're gonna feel really awesome if you figure this out yourself versus give up in 5 seconds and ask him to do it for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you said, the reward of, the money and helping people, that really can be my switching over my brain processing of, if you do this, you will feel good, you will get a reward, versus you do this and you give up. It's going to feel good right now because you want to figure it out, but you're not going to get the...
I feel like that's kind of any of this stuff is like, the things you're good at, you've probably practiced a lot or done a lot. The things that you're not good at, you probably haven't done that much or enough. And then what you envy in other people, it's like they probably are doing that all the time, or they're practicing it a lot. Like they're getting repetitions at it. That's like, you just need more repetitions, and you need to take advantage of those opportunities to where when they do present themselves, it's like working out's a bad example because you can always choose to go. To where like the situations that we're talking about, they kind of arise in random situations that you may get few and far between of that happening. That's like, you need to be really aware when it's happening so that you can take advantage of it to get better and better at it. But it's like, it just comes down to repetition, really.
Do you have any like hard, fast rules that you've created with yourself for that kind of stuff? Like, I think that's what helped me with our dynamic, with like a family dynamic, is the things that I was noticing I was really struggling with, or emotionally it felt like things were happening to me. I would consciously, every time something came up, because it wasn't something you could schedule. Like it was like, this could happen 3 months in between. It's like, how do I know if I'm getting better at it? Because it might not come up that often, but when it does, making a conscious effort of, okay, I'm going to choose to be different here. Like, this is how I don't want to act. I don't really know what I do want to act like, but I'm just going to trial something else out that's not that. Or like, as of maybe the last year or so, I've made a choice of, I'm not going to ever say like I can't have this conversation right now, or I don't want to have this conversation right now. I will always choose to like power through and have the conversation, even if it's something I don't want to talk about, or it seems tiresome, or like it's going to stress me out. I don't know why that was something that like prepping for kids seemed important to me. of like, I'm building myself up for that. And that seemed like a tool that I would need to have, because kids talk about and need a bunch of stuff that is so not maybe relevant or what you want to do or whatever, but you have to do it, that I made a choice of like, any conversation you're going to have no matter what, and make it work.
I can't think of anything specific. I feel like it comes about randomly of, I'm like, okay, I need to stop talking about traffic and driving while I'm driving. It's like, I just need to stop doing it, and I'll do something like that. Or I don't know, like, it's just like little situations like that where you can kind of tell like, oh, I have a bad attitude about this, or I always complain about this thing, or that seems to be the theme for me, is like, I just have a negative attitude about something, and it always riles me up, or it always like ends up being the situations. Like, I drive every single day, so if I'm complaining and talking about how shitty people drive, or they do this, they do that every single day, it's like, what is that doing for my psyche? That it's like, okay, and if that starts to get out of control, it's like, okay, hard fast rule, let's just stop talking about what's going on and just drive and shut your mouth. And I think that helps me just let it go. It's like, commenting on it, like, I get riled up. The commenting on stuff doesn't like, oh, good.
Doesn't like relieve it.
Yeah, it doesn't relieve. It just makes me fucking keep spitting stuff out and keep going. It's like the ball is in motion, and I'm just going to keep going bigger, faster. So it's usually like little stuff like that. It's not, I don't know. I can't think of any example where I made this ginormous life choice and it's been that now. Like, I'm not going to do this now, and it like ended all things. It's like, it always a little bit comes back around maybe, but maybe I'm a little bit better at handling it or recognizing quicker, like, okay, just calm down about the traffic. But it's not, I don't have like a big example for that.
Okay. Or
but
even just like day-to-day habits that you're like, I intentionally do this.
No, I mean, not like hard rules, like this has to get done every single day. I don't know. For me, I'm like, there's no possible way that that's going to work, especially with the lives and the schedules that we have of how much traveling and whatnot. It's like, if I'm like, I have to work out every single day, or I have to have some sort of activity, or it's like, it's just not going to work that way. So then I'm going to be even more upset when it doesn't happen, and I'm not able to follow my rules, and then I'm going to beat myself up. And I don't know. I don't have non-negotiables, I guess. Like, I don't know. For me, I don't think that would be a good idea, because I'd beat myself up more than it being helpful. Like, I'm already a fairly disciplined person. I've been able to work on that like, it would just make it worse. It would just be like, why am I so strict about this? Like, I'm just getting upset because now, it's like we were talking about on the walk today. I haven't worked out. I haven't gone to the gym or worked out in probably a week. It's like, if I had a rule of it had to be 3 times a week or whatever, like, I'd be beating myself up now. But our last week or two and the next week is going to be insane. That's like, if I have this hard rule of I have to work out this many times, it's like, so you have a crazy 2 weeks and now you're beating yourself up because you didn't do it. Like, I just had so much shit going on. When was I going to be able to do that? It's like, that would have made things worse probably if I would have went and tried to find time to work out. Just because I'm stubborn or I have this hard rule, it just wouldn't work for me.
Yeah, there's only a few things like that for me that I can do. I like the kind of like what you said about when we were on the plane, like the diet and working out stuff. There needs to be something a little extreme about it for people to get excited and like to stay inspired by it. That I think things like that, I choose, a lot of it is revolving around like what next version of life I want to have or to build myself to be. Like, that can keep me going for a while. Like, that's probably the only reason why I'm doing this conversation thing. It's just like, I see the the value that I'm getting of, if it's a conversation, I normally be like, I really don't want to talk about this. It's like, yeah, but you never want to talk about that. So there's never going to be a time where you're going to be jazzed to talk about car stuff or to talk about like whatever, life logistics. Like you never like talking about that. So you're just going to keep pushing it down the line, and then it's never going to get talked about and never going to get dealt with. And you can't just have fun conversations all the time. That's just not how it's going to work from here on out in my head. And I was like, and especially with kids, they're going to talk about a bunch of shit you don't want to talk about, and they're going to want to do a bunch of shit you don't want to do, and you're going to have to listen, and like, it's not going to be fun time all the time. So I need to start gearing my brain up and my attitude up to handle things even when they're not fun.
Yeah.
And that was like an easy thing where I was noticing a lot, where I was like, man, you just always get down when, you know, this gets brought up or whatever. It's like, yeah, because it's boring and you don't want to talk about it. But like, that's a lot of stuff, and you're just going to have to figure it out. And those things have become less irritating to me because I'm not giving myself that, like, when you bring it up, I'm like, ugh, how long am I going to listen before I'm like, I can't do this. It's like, I can't give myself that option anymore. I have to stick it out through the whole conversation. Even if I'm silent, like I'm not adding to it. It's like, you still have to listen to him for however long he wants to talk about this, and just like be cool.
Yeah. To where then I think you start to, because you don't give yourself that out, you start to figure out ways to make it productive.
Yeah.
And make it beneficial.
Yeah.
Rather than, oh, I can't talk about this. I don't want to talk about this right now. And then you're not avoiding it maybe, but potentially avoiding it. That now this is never getting done. Because there's probably something to learn within there too. If you're so against talking about this thing, and maybe it's because the way that I talk about it is just annoying, or the way that I talk about it is the bias or something like that, and you can see right through it. It's like, well, there, you're learning more about me, and you're, I don't know, it's like there's stuff that you can end up taking from that if you can separate from the fact of like, this is boring or annoying to me.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, but there's no option to get out. So now what?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to sit here and listen. It's like you learn way more by listening than just like overbearingly talking or like going, I don't want to talk about this.
Yeah.
And that's a long-term solution. It's like, look how good our communication is, probably because of stuff like that, where we weren't, I mean, for a while we were doing the like, I don't want to talk about this right now. Can we find a different time to do it? And then it's like
you wouldn't.
a month goes by and it's like, hey, can we talk about this thing? It's like,
I'm not saying you, just like in general, you don't. Like we both, like people just don't. This is something you don't want to talk about, so of course you're not going to bring it back up. Yeah,
you're going to avoid it at all costs. But then you have this like weird nagging, oh, we are supposed to talk about this thing, but we haven't talked about this thing, and something on the side maybe gets kind of brought up around that conversation. It reminds you of it that we haven't had the conversation. It's like, it's just that looming.
It's a to-do list, basically.
Yeah, and it just sucks. It's like, just check it off the list and get it over with. And even if that conversation is going to take 3 months to continuously talk about, but it's like, again, you work through and you get through all of that, and now your communication's better, and you don't have that looming thing that, sure, you could have avoided it for 3 months, but it's still there to where now it's not.
And even just to get a full, like you said, learning something from it, it's like, it's allowed me to not be as selfish with the communication, and it's kind of like the problem solving stuff. It's like, it's forcing me to on the spot think about what I think about it, and then have to communicate that to you. It's like, I wasn't maybe ruminating the last how many hours on the car stuff like you have. It's like, I'm just needing to think about it and come up with something and like talk it through. But then also I'm able to see from both of us when this stuff gets brought up, or like, when do you bring the car stuff up? How many times are you bringing the car stuff up? Is there a pattern to when you're bringing the car stuff up? Is there a pattern to when I don't really like talking about it? Is there a pattern to things that I don't like talking about, and I'm consciously having to go like, man, this is another one of those things that you're having to tell yourself, like, no, you have to stay in this conversation. It's like, well, is there a theme to all of those? And is the theme, it's just boring adult shit that you don't like talking about? It's like, if you just gave yourself that out all the time, it wouldn't force you to have to even evaluate at all, because you can just go, nah,
Right. But then where does that lead to? It's like you're now just avoiding, or now you become extremely selfish because you're only going to talk about what you want to talk about, and then nobody wants to be around you and talk to you, and now you're lonely and you can't figure out why. And it's like, well, it's that pattern of just constantly avoiding or constantly going, no, I don't want to talk about that. It's boring. It's stupid. It's annoying. I don't like when you talk about it because it makes me feel weird or bad. And it's like, well, that's something you need to work through. It's not something to avoid. It's like, there's really nothing that you should be avoiding. It's kind of that idea of like, don't find a way around it. Like, go through it.
Yeah.
If you have an obstacle, like, go through it. Get over it. Not, I'm going to just find a different route to get.
We love adversity.
Yeah. Yeah. Adversity again. It's just, it's so much better than, I don't know, I'm just going to avoid everything in every conversation that I don't want to have. Because that's the other thing too, is if you're constantly doing that, when you do need to have tough conversations, you're going to be so unequipped at doing them. It's like tough conversations are going to find you at some point. And now you've had no practice on how to listen in those situations. Even if it's like, we have to talk about a car situation and we don't want to be talking about it. Well, you kind of have to. Now you take it to something way more extreme. You have no practice and no skill at how do I listen to the other person and make them feel like they're being heard, and actually hearing them and bouncing ideas off of them, and also just communicating. How do I communicate effectively so that they're understanding what I'm saying and I'm not just getting pissed and annoyed and then attacking them because I don't know how to handle my emotions in these types of conversations. It's like that is all learned by practicing those and not avoiding it.
Yeah, and it's silly because it's not even difficult conversations for me. Like, it's not like we're talking about serious stuff. It's just, it's logistical life stuff that is not fun for me, so I don't like talking about it. But yeah, it makes all of those communication skills sharpened, because then when we are talking about something that we do like to talk about, like, things flow a little bit better, and you still have that data point from before of when we bring up certain things and when we talk about certain, like, why are we talking about this topic now, and why do you have this bias towards this? Why do I have this bias towards this? It's like, well, you have that when it's difficult or when it's boring or when it's da-da-da, so why would you not have that also with the exciting conversations, or even just that, like, being able to work through a conversation that we don't, maybe neither of us want to be in.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like you don't have the excitement of the conversation to, like, keep it afloat.
Right. I wrote something down that you said a while ago that I think is perfect for this podcast. Is you said, like, being an adult is just making rules and figuring out which ones you're going to break. And it's like, how many people are doing that kind of, where it's like a little bit of what we're talking about now is like, you maybe have hard and fast rules for yourself. And I think the main area that people do this probably is health and fitness, like their exercise and their nutrition. Oh, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to work out 3 times a week. And then you just, the rules that you created, you start to slowly break them. That it was kind of you were saying it in relation to kids of like, their life is so scheduled for so long. And then once you become an adult or you are creating your own schedule, you're now responsible for all that. There isn't somebody that's telling you, hey, you have to, like, continue to do this. You have to do your homework, or you have to, like, get good grades and in order for you to play football, or you have to, like, show up to practice and be at practice and put in effort. And it's like, you just are in control of everything now.
Even that, when you show up to these things, someone's telling you how to be.
Yeah.
Someone's telling you how to be at home, how to behave, how to talk. Someone's telling you how to behave, how to talk at school, at practice. Like, you don't have to just, am I going to try with my fitness?
Right.
And then decide, it's like, no, your coach is telling you, you're going to do it.
And then you don't have that, you don't even have the feedback. It's like you're going, okay, I need to go get in shape, and you start to try to do that, but then nobody's telling you, like, okay, you're doing what you should be doing, or
Yeah.
You're not doing a good job. You need to pick up the pace. Like, there's nobody there to give you feedback. So it's just like, you feel like you're kind of aimlessly doing something. You don't know if it's good or not, or I think that's maybe why people start to falter on their rules is like they realize nobody's paying attention and nobody's really watching and nobody really cares. So it's like, all right, well, I guess I'll just stop going to the gym. Nobody's probably going to notice. Or I guess I'll just stop with this diet because nobody's here watching me cook what foods. It's like, think about having a teacher there or a coach there at every step of the way. You show up to the gym. That's why people get personal trainers, because they need the accountability. They need somebody to kind of be on their butt about, hey, you need to be here at 9 o'clock. And so that we get the full 30 minutes or we get the full hour. And same with the nutrition thing. It's like you don't have a cook. It's like you may have a nutritionist, but still they're not in your house making sure you're cooking the right things and eating it and then not sneaking food or something. It's like it's all on you. And you take that to whatever rules you might have, and it's just you have to be self-accountable. And that's what's so difficult. You aren't that your entire life because you have teachers, coaches, parents, and then all of a sudden you get to this point and you're like, oh, I could just do whatever I want and nobody's going to even care or pay attention. So that's where it's even more critical to have that self-accountability and not break those rules that you have. It's like, this is so difficult. You get to that point where you're like, I could just not go to the gym and nobody would notice. And that's where you got to go, no, I would notice. And that's like the most important thing is I would know that I'm not going, rather than like, yeah, Joe Schmo isn't going to care. You have to constantly be coaching yourself.
And that's where I think the benefit of the benefit of the saying of like parenting yourself. I think the positive of that is what we're talking about. I don't like it when it's referring to like you're not a complete person, so you gotta like still, you know, give yourself everything that your parents didn't. It's not that, but it's like you're not done at 18. Right. You're not complete. You're not a complete person. No one's a complete person. You're going to continue to grow. But you have a little bit more of, you have to check in like, okay, well, when I was a kid, like what worked for me? I think that's one thing we have figured out, and it has helped us like kind of stay in the game of things, is like, okay, what worked when we were kids? Like staying on schedule, staying in routines, having a plan, like
being disciplined, doing shit even though you don't want to do it.
Yeah, it's like that worked for us. So why would that not work for us now? It's like, it's okay if we know what every day is going to look like. It's like some people could see that as boring. I get that. For us, that's where we have, like, to me, I'm more relaxed that way. I know what the day is going to be. I know how to attack the day because I know where to put my energy into what and what the whole thing is going to look like. It's like, yeah, because that's how it was growing up with school and with dance, and everything was every day I knew what was happening. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, just because I can make my own rules up, evaluate where you've been successful.
And I think that's where you make your own rules, or even that schedule of, yeah, to promote like you being successful. Because going through school, you know, Monday through Friday, you knew what your Monday schedule was, your Tuesday, your Wednesday, and you could go down the list. And then it's like you maybe had 1 or 2 days where there wasn't much going on. Like the Saturday, like the weekends, it was like you maybe didn't have practice, or if you did, you had an hour and a half practice, and then the rest of the day was yours. To where I think people kind of approach, well, I have my 9 to 5 and that's my schedule, but I don't know. Maybe we were different where we had all the extracurriculars. It was like we were scheduled from the moment we got up to the moment we went to bed, kind of thing. It's like this was the schedule. I don't think adults really do that. It's like 9 to 5, and then I don't know what I'm going to do the rest, 5 to 10 or 11, whatever time I'm going to bed. That's like having that scheduled out. It's like that's what you were basically taught and primed to do your whole school age growing up. It's like, why? That's probably where you are best, is knowing what each day is going to be. And maybe that's just the way that we work. Yeah. But it'd be hard for me to believe.
Because maybe people didn't have that growing up, and that's where they did find success and joy.
Majority of people went to school.
Maybe they were homeschooled and they had more of like a unique schedule. And
I know, but majority of people went to school. Yeah, it's like we can point out the exceptions, but yeah. And that's where I'm like, and that's the other thing. I can't picture how somebody being loosey-goose 7 days a week is going to be...
Get everything done,
be like efficient and as successful as they could be or more than having a schedule and having it laid out and being able to maybe tweak things and adjust things. It's like, how do you adjust or tweak anything when every day is
when you don't know what the constant is?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where I could see that. That's what I was going to say actually when you were done. Was like, what's the control group? If you don't know what your baseline is, you don't know if you've been more productive or not. You don't know where you could add things in. It's like, that's like where we know with work stuff or with, you know, eventually having like building a family. It's like, we know what we need to tweak because we know like, well, if we're going to have kids, that's going to be a chunk of time. So how much in preparation do we need to start building for that? And like how much time in our schedules and our days and our whole year of something, like how do we need to adjust our life and recreate our life and start building towards that so that that's manageable? Or we want to achieve this fitness thing, what do we need to do to start implementing into our daily routine so that that happens?
Well, I think it's kind of like looking at the hot shot thing of that lady but not putting it to the future stuff. It's like the path that I'm on, do I feel like that's going to get to there?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not, then okay, what do we need to change? We analyze every aspect of this, and what do we need to do? It's like if I'm, you know, the jobs that we're doing now, where it's like we travel a ton and we're gone a lot. It's like, how does that work with kids? Okay, well, can you take the kids with you? Are you going to want to take the kids? Is your schedule there going to allow that? Do you need to not do that job? Like, what is the situation? And having to figure out, okay, what do we need to do? What questions do we need to ask with what people? And you just keep going down the list of every little nook and cranny that you can find of how do I make this work? If it's the health and fitness things, like I want to live to 90. Well, is what you're doing going to get you to 90? Like, are you overweight? Are you underweight? Do you have bad blood pressure? Are you diabetic? Are you super weak? Like, what are all of the factors that are going to restrict you from getting there? And now it's like, okay, how would I change this today in order to get there? Okay, it's starting to resistance train. Let me get to the gym and get stronger so I reduce my risk of falling and getting hurt, or just having more muscle mass is going to have me be healthier and more mobile, and that's going to help me get to 90. Okay, my diet sucks. How do I fix my diet, and what do I need to change there? And you start doing that sort of stuff. It's like, I think that's the other thing is, I don't know. Again, it goes back to the avoidance. I think it's just so much avoidance. The things that we're not good at, we really avoid. Oh, I'm not good at the healthy eating, or I'm not feeling healthy, so I'm just going to kind of not pay attention to it and just look the other way. It's like, I totally do that. I totally do that with the things that like are not going well. If I really look at them, it's like, oh, you're avoiding the problem, or you're not like trying to find real solutions to fix it and putting in practice and effort. You're just kind of, you're maybe open to talk about them, but you just kind of complain about them, and then there's nothing actionable. And that's its own version of avoidance. It's like, sure, you might talk, but you ain't doing anything about it. So it's that weird avoidance thing that we do that I think is probably one of the root causes of why this thing isn't working for you. You're avoiding it in some way. So much silence.
Well, because I'm just trying to think, like, why, like, when we bring it up, or when people bring it up in conversation, do you think that's their way of, or I guess you, like, put yourself in, like, is that your way of, like, feeling like you're dealing with it because you're talking about it? Is it you're trying to get clarification? Are you ruminating on it?
Oh, I mean, potentially all of the above.
Because I feel like we talk about that. Sorry, not to cut you, but like I feel like we talk about that where it's like, why does this person keep bringing this up, but they don't do anything about it? Like, stop talking about it then. It's like you keep bringing it up, but your actions are not changing.
Well, it's probably because they're comfortable enough to talk, but
not comfortable enough to do.
I don't know. I don't know if it's a situation where they think the more that they talk about it, the more they'll figure out what they need to do with it. To where I just don't necessarily know if I believe that. Like, most of the time you probably know what you should do. You're just not doing it. It's like, I used to snap all the time. And it wasn't like, oh, I wonder how I don't do that. Let's talk about it for 10 hours. It's like, I know what to do. Shut your fucking mouth. Just do that. Oh, okay. So now you stop opening your mouth so much and you don't snap. And look, you're able to like see the thoughts and the feelings come in, but you've made a decision to close your mouth. So now you're allowing it to play out rather than you being emotional and impulsive and letting everything out. It's like, I knew what to do. I just didn't want to do it because there's that short-term good feeling that's like, it's kind of maybe that like relief, like you were saying. There's a little bit of relief that happens, but then you regret everything you did after that. So it ends up being a net negative. And I think it's the same thing with exercise or nutrition where you're like, oh, I just won't go today. And there's that little bit of like, I don't have to go. Yay. But then maybe it's that night or the next day. Now you feel like shit about yourself because you didn't go do the thing that you should do and you know you should do. It's not like, what a mystery. I don't know why I didn't go and why I'm not wanting to go. It's like, you know why, and you know why you didn't go. So just do it next time. I don't think we're that confused on why is this happening? It's like,
no, it's not the confused of why is it happening, but the talking about it. What's the benefit of talking about it? And is it, like you said, like it's just they're comfortable talking about it, but they know they're not going to do anything?
That might be relief as well. Gets it out of their mind.
Sure.
But I think you already said it of like, it's not actionable. That's not solving the issue. There's no action taking place to make you feel better or to do something positive about it. You're just talking.
And that's not enough to do the action. It's easier to talk about it for years and years and years, but not actually do anything.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's way easier. I think that's what's so cool about like...
I have things like that, I'm sure. Or I know I do have things like that.
I don't know. It seems like the people that talk the least about what they're trying to do are probably doing it the most and having the most success.
Because they don't need to talk about it. Their actions show it.
Kinda. Like they're feeling the fulfilled because they're doing it. They don't need to... I don't know. They just don't need... They're getting the relief. But the relief is coming from the actionable thing. Not from the talking. You know, it's like if the actionable thing gives you, let's say 25% relief, and the talking gives you 2, you're going to have to talk way more about it to get to that 25% than you are actually doing it. But then even once you get to that 25%, it's like it all starts to reduce and go away. And then you're sitting there back at 0 going like, oh, why do I feel bad? To where when you actually go do it, that 25% probably stays there. And it's just holding there. And you can always go back to like, yes, I went and did that. Great. And then you do it the next day. And it's the same thing.
Interesting. Yeah. Because now that I'm like thinking, it's like I'm trying to think of things that I do that with. One thing I can think of is like the tracking protein throughout the day. It's so hard for me to stay consistent doing that. I think it's like, it's the every meal thing. It's the looking up numbers. It's the having to look up how much protein is in this thing, and I'm having to problem solve that.
4 different
blah, blah, blah.
things. Say
I
4
can't just like
things.
look at a chart. But I'll bring it up like, man, I want to be able to do that. It's not really that difficult to be able to do, but I think that's what I needed to change. It is difficult for me. That's why I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
I keep saying like it's not that hard. It's like, well, clearly it is.
Yeah.
Because you're not doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I should look it up. I wonder if I did. Wasn't in my immediate notes, but maybe it was up earlier. I was watching an interview with a guy that like specializes in habits and like communication skills and stuff, and he was saying like if you can have he has like a 5 things, like a reason why you'd want to create a habit. If you have a reward with the habit and then you make it like let me see if I can look it up because I wrote down like the whole structure of how to do it. Your brain will start to basically like the path of least resistance. It will find the easiest way to do it. He said like something like backing out your car out of your garage. The reward is you got out of it without dinging your car. So every morning, that's a little bit of a reward. So you'll find the easiest way to do that every single time. He's like, that's how you like can get out with, sometimes you don't even think about it. Like you're not having to be like crazy focused. You just start to learn the pathway and you can kind of do it unconsciously. That's your brain's way of finding the easiest pattern to way to do it. That I think I just need to stick with the writing it in enough, because then hopefully I will find the easiest way. It's like right now I'm like, is it writing it down on the notebook? Is it looking it up and making in the chart and whatever? It's like that's almost too much, and then that ruminating on it is making me not do it. To where I wonder how much of that, if I just kept doing it, would it naturally figure itself out? That was kind of me with reading. It was like I want to be able to read. I want to have that be a consistent and actually be able to get through books in somewhat regular amount of time. And it kind of did start with it started with the sporadic. You'd read sporadically, then you go off for a long time, and then all of a sudden you try to get back on it, and it's like, okay, I'm going to read this much every day. And then you're starting to go like, well, here's the time I'm reading in the day, and I just never ever want to go read at 3 p.m. This is the time that I chose, and it sucks every time. So then you just change the times around, and you start to find things that work a little bit better and a little bit better. And it's like I found the best time for me to read is right when I get up and we're getting ready to go for the walk. Like I'm usually able to just get the coffee going, and then I can sit and read for a little while it's making. It's like I'm reading for maybe 10 minutes a day. It's nothing amazing or crazy, but that has been the easiest way to get me to consistently read. This is just like right away in the morning for maybe 10 minutes. And it's like, that was just me finding the path of least resistance. It's like, I want to do this thing, but I don't know how or when feels good. And it's like every other time was like, oh, this sucks. I do not want to sit here and read right now. Knowing too, like I'm a fast starter, and then I just peter out towards the end of the day. It's like, why would you choose the hardest thing of your, like, it's easier for me to go work out than it is to sit down and read. And it's like, so why are you choosing that at the one of the later points in the day when you don't want to do anything at that time? It's like, put it way at the front where you never want to, but at least you have the ambition to do stuff right away in the morning. So it's almost like you've created this system without even knowing it. So the part of your brain, it's a herb, basil. Who cares? Basal ganglia. I think that's in the part of the brain. He was saying that part of your brain is its main function is to create habits. Like that's its sole purpose, because evolutionary wise, well, that is. If you can't create a habit, you can't evolve, because then you don't know where, like what we're saying, we don't know what's getting better, what's not getting better, what do we need to improve on. Like unless you can create a system, you have no data you're collecting. You can't evolve. So that's like the main reason that it's there, because otherwise we would not keep going and survive. So it's triggered by an action or a cue. So this is what your brain does. It's triggered by an action or a cue, links it to a routine, and then checks to see if there's a reward. So it creates the habit loop with the objectives to make it easier and needing less thought. So for you, it's like the action or the cue is it's morning time, you're making coffee. That's like every time I'm making coffee, I'm going to do this thing, which is reading. Then it links to a routine of, okay, I'm going to do it in the morning. That's going to be a part of my making coffee routine. That's part of my morning routine. We're going to do it before we go on the beach walk. And then the beach walk might be your reward. or coffee might be your reward or something. I said, like, for me, doing a silly example of like putting dishes away, like staying more consistent with that, the cue or option would be time of day so needing to be a cue or option. It's either your time of day, people that are involved, like things it will affect, and something else like your social, I don't remember. But so I was like, okay, putting the dishes away, my cue would be lunchtime. Every time that we have lunch, I'm either going to put it away before or after. What's the routine? The routine is that you want to avoid having them out throughout the day, because that drives me nuts. So that will be my like, okay, if that's happening, I'm not going to be happy about it. I need to make a routine of during lunchtime, I'm either putting away before or after, depending on what I feel. And then the reward is taking a moment to enjoy it, that I have a clean kitchen and doing that. He's like, if you do that over and over again, the reward and the fact that it's related to the cue, it almost like then becomes like a what?
I just thought of every time we go grocery shopping with my mom, we'd get
a
little
treat.
candy. Yeah.
Yes.
So then you start to associate going in groceries is kind of with that, and
yes.
Yep.
To where then, if it was something like you don't like to go get groceries, if it was like every Saturday we go get groceries, you have the cue of it's Saturday, we do it at this time, it's part of routine. You're going to figure out the best way to do that, of where am I going to park on those days? What carts do I like? What bags do I want to bring? What direction do I like to go in the store, so that it becomes easier for you to maintain that ritual, maintain that that habit. And then your reward would be the candy. Of like, every time I do that, I get the reward. And at first, when I was hearing that, I was like, really, do we need a reward for everything? But
the reward can be so...
It's like I said, just take a moment. There's like, I love that it's clean right now.
Yeah. That's how do you put that into nutrition and exercise? Because that is like the biggest, most difficult thing for people. Because it is always the same routine. Like, I want to get in shape. I'm going to start to go to the gym. They start to go to the gym, and then that stays consistent for 2 weeks, 2 months, whatever. I don't know. Maybe it's 90 days, and then it starts to teeter off. Maybe it's 60 days. But then it just slowly starts to go away. So is it stuff like this where it's like the time isn't consistent, or how you're going or doing or getting to, I mean, like, we go to the gym and we park in the same spot every day.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that it's necessarily easier, but in a weird way it is easier, because I don't have to think about where I'm parking.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go park in the same spot every day. And it's like you have kind of the same... Gosh, we really made like our days just the same habit routine.
Yes.
Which makes everything so easy.
Yes. I think that's where it goes back to like, you can't be loosey-goosey about it. And that's another thing that he was saying too that I forgot to say was, you then like, the action is also, what do I need to do to make that process happen? So the example that they were giving on the podcast was, she wanted to wake up earlier. So then she also needed an action that was going to be pertaining to getting up earlier. It wasn't just going to be, I'm just going to get up earlier. She was like, okay, if I get up earlier, I want to meditate. That's going to be the actionable thing that I'm going to do, that I have to do once I get up. And I have to get up earlier in order to meditate, because my kids are going to get up at this time. So if I don't get up right now, that action won't happen, and I want to do that action. That wasn't even the reward. That was the function of how you're going to maintain that habit. You're going to get up at this time, which is earlier, so you can do this thing, and you're going to do it in the exact same way every single day. You're going to stay in the same spot. You're going to listen to the same thing. You're going to blah, 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 whatever. And then her reward was like, she wanted to get in a cold shower. That was going to be her reward for getting to meditate that day. That, I think if you're the diet and the working out, I think people make it too loosey-goosey, to where if I was starting again from scratch, I would have my cue be every Tuesday or whatever day I'm seems like it would seem easier. Or if you want to go reverse, whatever day is the most difficult and you want to try to figure it out, because then you know everything backwards, that will be easier. But finding a cue of Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm going to the gym. So then you know that day, there's your cue. Tuesday and Thursdays comes around. You don't have to question it. There's no loosey-goose deciding when you should go to the gym. It's the conversation thing. You're never going to want to go. You're never going to want to have that conversation. So you need to schedule it and force yourself to do it. The cue is the Tuesday, Thursday. Then the action of what am I going to do when I get there?
See, hold on though. I don't think that's enough. Like, I don't think Tuesday, Thursday is enough. I think that you need to have a time.
Well, yeah, okay, sure. Tuesday, Thursday, at this time, after I'm doing this, before I'm doing this.
And that's what I was going to say too is, can you connect it to something? Because it seems like every one of these habits is connected. Like you said, like me with reading is, well, I'm making coffee. So then it's like a connection with the coffee, and then this. Whoever was on the podcast was getting up at that time and doing the meditation. Like, she wants to get up earlier, but it's paired with, I'm going to meditate then. So it's like, how do you do the go to the gym, but when? It's like, are you going before you go get groceries for the day? It's just, but do you always need groceries on Tuesdays or Wednesdays or Tuesdays or Thursdays? You know, like, it seems like that, like the pairing thing is sticking out to me, of pairing it with something.
Sure.
And the pairing not being the reward.
Right.
The pairing being like that. I'm going to go to the gym and then I'm going to go get groceries afterwards.
Sure. Well, I mean, like, every time we're back home with my dad, every time after we work out, we go to Woodman's.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, we almost, like, we may need one thing. But
right.
That's the pairing of we go to that to the same time. I think that could be individual of how specific do you want it to be. It could be every time after work. Like, once work is done, you go to the gym. Or if it's a day off, maybe it's like after lunch.
Yeah.
Every time after lunch, we go to the gym.
Yeah.
It's pretty like on the same every day. If we're going to the gym, it's going to be after lunch, that we're not like, well, when should we go today? Let's eat lunch and then see how it goes. Like, no, we're not going to do it before. We're not even going to think about it before. We're going to do it after. It could be something silly like you do laundry on this day, and that's also the day that you go to the gym.
Yeah.
When you have clean workout clothes, that's the day that you go to the gym. So then you're going to make sure that you do it on Monday night, so that Tuesday you're going to the gym with the clean laundry.
Or maybe it's something with your kids. Like, your dad used to take you to dance and then go to the gym.
Yeah. Yeah.
It could be something like that.
So yeah, I think that could be something.
Personal trainers like have success. Like, the people that go to personal trainer, because it's like your session is at 9:30. There's no like, I'll just show up and then they'll train me. It's like, no, you have an appointment. Yeah. Again, it goes back to the schedule thing.
Well, and maybe that's something like, see it as an appointment with yourself. I think that's why also our schedule works, and maybe where it doesn't sometimes is there's not a lot of room for a loosey-goose, which we could do a better job of just scheduling in loosey-goose time. But it's like, if my mom wants to call me, like, we have to have it in the books. Like, you can't just freely call me. Like, you have to be on my calendar, basically. But that's also a choice. If I could easily schedule in more free time, it's just I don't feel like I need to do that. But almost like have an appointment to go to the gym. I have to be there by 5:30 or whatever. Now, granted, some people could get slippery slope with that, because then if they're a little bit later at work or they're stuck in traffic or whatever, then they're like, ugh. It's like, well, same thing with an appointment. You wouldn't just cancel. You would try to get there as quickly as you could.
Yeah, and that's where, weirdly, I think it not being associated with a time thing would be better. Like, having it be associated with, I go to the gym before I go get groceries.
Sure. Okay.
Or some, whatever thing you can come up with, like taking your kids to practice or whatever it could be associated with. I gotta go get gas. Almost like, maybe it doesn't even need to be the same thing every time. It's like, what is a thing that I need to go out and do today? I'm going to put my workout with that.
With the errands.
That way I'm getting it all kind of done in one thing.
That's another thing we do.
Yeah.
Because we drive out to go do something, and that's close to the gym, so we'll go to the gym with the
And it's
errand.
Put the gym first.
Yeah.
And then go get groceries or go get gas. It's
so weird that even we do that here. Maybe it's just because they're right next to each other, and same thing with Woodman's and back home, like they're right next to each other. Just happens to be.
You always
how it
need
plays
something
out.
from the grocery store, it seems like.
But that would be, I think, the cue would be some sort of keeping it on the same days, keeping it on the general time, or maybe more of like the order of your day stays the same with when you go to the gym.
Rather than going, I'm going to work out twice a week. It's like, no, it's going to be Tuesday and Thursday.
Yes. And then your action of when I'm there, this is what I'm doing on those days. Not just showing up and going, maybe I'll do this or maybe I'll do a little bit of that. It's like that freedom doesn't get to come in until you enjoy, or maybe not enjoy, but you know you're going to go to the gym and then you're like, let's just wing it today. Because like, I know I'm going to be here anyways. I think that winging it, it's like, there's no accountability of whether you complete a task or not because you don't know what the task is. You're making the task up.
Well, and that's the other thing. Like, look at what the people who are the best at doing this is. They don't wing it.
No, they are running
strict
programs all the time, even when they're super experienced.
And that's probably true for any profession anywhere. Nobody that gets like amazing at their thing now starts to go like, let me just wing it now. It's like, no, they have schedule, structure, a program that they're following.
So that would be the action, would be to have a thing that you're going to do when you get there. See, there's no, I also love that's why I love habits. And like you said, doing it without even thinking, or you're trying to think even less. I love things like that where it's not a plug and play, like trying to limit as many decisions as I can in the day.
Yeah.
It's like, I know what I'm going to eat for breakfast. I know what that's why I love the schedule. I don't have to think about what is the most effective every single day. I've already thought it out and I've tweaked it, and this is what it is.
Because you let your feelings get into it too much then.
Yeah.
Of, do I feel like doing this today or not? Or, I don't really want to do squats. I want to do this. It's like, it doesn't
You're never
matter.
gonna.
Yeah.
You're never gonna. That having that, I don't have to make a decision. I can just zone out and plug and play. I show up at this time because I do it before I go get groceries. I walk in, I go to put my bag here. It's like, even thinking about that, like, I think of that at the athletic club. It's like, all of the high school kids, like, we put our bags in the same spot every single day.
Yeah.
It's like having your bag go in the same spot. You go and you do your same routine. You do your same warm-up routine. You see, like, whatever it is, you're going there and you have a plan of attack immediately. Not, well, let me warm up a little bit and like, let's see if I get into it.
You know what I used to do that was the worst? I would, and it's so weird how you'd get into like a routine of it. I would get there and then I would like go to the bathroom for like 30 minutes and just be sitting there. Mm-hmm. It's like, or go sit in the locker room for, it's like, you are just procrastinating and wasting time. Like, you gotta get going and get into it. Don't procrastinate.
Yeah. That's why I like the pre-workout. Taking that once you get there. Because there's like, it's go time now. Like, it's either going to get crazy or you're going to utilize it. And I don't want it to get crazy. So like, you have to go now.
Yeah.
But, okay, so then you do the action, then having the reward. Your brain needs to figure out that there's a reward for this. Otherwise, it'll stop doing it or it'll see it's pointless. So
and
that could be.
That's where I think is another key is with the exercise stuff, people attach the reward to their progress way too much.
Yeah.
Because then they start, like exactly what you said. If your brain doesn't see that there's a reward, it will stop wanting to do it. Well, guess what? Your body doesn't change in a week. Your body doesn't start to just shed pounds that quickly or put on muscle that quickly. So if you're attaching your reward to my gains, that is potentially what keeps steering you off that path and getting away from working out, whatever. The reward, I think, would need to be something that's not associated with any of your progress or whatever.
Yeah.
The reward could be like giving yourself a pat on the back, like, good job for going and doing this.
Yeah.
But not like, did I lose the 2 pounds I wanted to this week or today or whatever? Or did I get stronger? Did I bench press more today? Did I squat more today? Like, if you attach it to that sort of stuff, it just, I think the reward needs to be attached or associated with the completion of what you just did.
Well, and it could be something silly. Like maybe you only wear certain things on your workout days. So you can only get to do that on those workout days. Or maybe when you go to the grocery store afterwards, like you get to have a fun meal. Like it doesn't have to be bad, but like maybe that's the meal that you get to add a fun extra thing that you're going to pay for. Or my dad's like pre-workout. Like that's why he goes to the gym sometimes, is because he's so excited about the pre-workout that he will go to the gym just to have the pre-workout.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, whatever. Like,
true.
If that gets you there,
who cares?
you know, like until it becomes a habit to where then that becomes, you can have it or leave, like take it or leave it. My dad will never leave it. He'll never pre-workout, but
yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. When you break it down into all of those different layers, I think you can see a lot of the points where
why it works for us.
Why it works, but where that chain gets broken or where that starts to deteriorate, because it's always like, oh, why do people give up or why do people stop going? And it's like, well, what is the reward attached to? Like, do they have a cue of they're going to go at this day, this time, whatever? Or are they just kind of loosey-goose? I'm going to go twice a week and we'll see what happens. I'm going to adjust it depending on how busy my schedule is. It's like, it's probably not going to work then. You're always going to come up with an excuse to not go then.
The same reason, like, or the same breakdown of a bad habit is the same thing with the good one. There's no choice. You eliminate choice.
Yeah.
It's like, think of a bad habit that you have of like chewing your nails or what. It's like, there's not, I'm going to chew my nails right now. It's like, you just do it. There's no thought into it. There's no choice that's happening. It's just an action that your brain wants to do.
Because it found least resistance.
Least resistance. That's the way that you, like a soothing mechanism or whatever. It's how you deal with stress. That's what your brain figured out to do. That same thing with good habits. You have to eliminate the choice. It has to become so second nature that there's not well, should I read this morning? Do I want to read this morning? Like, is it going to work with the coffee? And like, will I feel rushed? It's like, no, you know.
Right.
It's like, you don't have to think about, do I want, like, you just know to go pick up the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I would say it's the same thing with nutrition. Just finding a way to have a cue, have an action, have a reward.
Yeah. I think that would be... And
like you said, and a pairing of it.
I think that is more difficult. I think what you were saying of just trying to eliminate choices, kind of have the same things every day. You know, or like for me even, it's usually 3 eggs in the morning, and I've just recently switched it of like having some sort of meat with it for even higher protein, and then whatever fruit. I think you can get as specific of like, I'm going to have 3 eggs, you know.
I have 4 eggs and a banana.
Yeah.
And I put the same seasoning on it.
I think that, I don't know, if you're having troubles with there being too many choices of that, I think you could definitely do that. For me, it's like, I know I'm going to have a piece of fruit, whatever, orange, apple, banana, some berries, whatever it is. I like to have that kind of option, but it's always fruit. It's not like I'm going to have my eggs and some meat and then just like whatever else. It's like, no, it's fruit. What fruit are you going to have? And I think, like you said, eliminating the choices like that for each meal would be helpful. But then again, it's like, what is the cue? Are you doing a breakfast, lunch, dinner? Are you doing an intermittent fasting? Are you doing a...
Well, it's like our cue. We come back for the walk. You start making breakfast. I shower. Then I make breakfast.
Oh, that's the cue.
The cue could be like, when is this thing... What's going to be the trigger that makes you know it's time to make breakfast?
And usually I feel like that's time.
Sure. So, yeah.
For this, don't you think?
Yeah.
It's like if you're doing a breakfast, lunch, dinner, you can only... If you got to go to work or whatever, you have to eat at this time.
Yeah.
And your lunch break is at this time.
So that probably automatically allows you to have that. But, you know, and that could be even just like when you cook and how you cook for what. It's like maybe every Thursday this is what your schedule is looking like. So after work, you cook this, or on a day that you have off, you like having some of your meals prepped for you, or your meat prepped for you. So, every Saturday you're going to meal prep.
Well, that's what one of my brothers and his family does. Like, it's like Sunday through, it's the whole week. They have a board that they write out what the meals will be for. I think it's just dinner that they do. I don't remember though.
Yeah.
But it's like they have it scheduled out for each day. And it's like, then you just go get the groceries for that week or whatever.
Yeah.
And
she plans that a month out. Like, she plans a whole month.
Yeah. So then
or like they do, like, Wednesdays we do this meal. Tuesdays we do this meal. It might be the same every week, but. So
then even that, you don't have to have the choice of, like, kind of what happens to me in the mornings right now, or really every meal, where it's like, okay, what meat do we have to do, or that we can cook now, and what veggies do we have that we can cook, or what fruit. It's like, it's already all laid out. You obviously should have gotten the groceries for those, and you don't even have to think about it. Again, eliminating the choice. It's like, it's already there, ready for you.
Also not at the grocery store going, what should we make this week, or what should we make tonight, or what? It's like, no, these are the things that I'm making. It's like what you said about, so when we were going on these work weekends, we eat out basically every meal. Like, they order food for us, so we have to send in what orders we want. And you said, like, if I do it before we leave, I will pick way better options, versus you're in the moment, you're hungry, you're tired, that you've had a long day, then I'm picking what I want for dinner. It's like, you're going to want the pastas and the burgers and whatever. It's like, well, no, 3 days ago when I was level-headed, I decided for myself that this is what I'm going to get. Yeah.
And then when the salmon and green beans show up, I'm not like, oh man, no. Right. I'm like, ugh, thank you, me, for looking out for me.
Yep.
And then you eat that and it's totally fine. Yep. It's enjoyable because you're hungry anyways. And then you're actually getting what is going to be better for you.
Yeah, so the cue, I think, is it's easier with nutrition because typically based off of your time of day, generally, like, and that starts to become a habit in itself. Your body starts to know, oh, it's like, you would think of like after school. It's like you were always hungry after school because you knew, well, I guess for me, like, I had to quickly eat before I went to dance. So I would be hungry even though no matter what lunch period I had, it's like after school I had to eat, otherwise I wasn't going to do it till after dance. So I would make myself be hungry, but I actually would be, because that was the schedule and that was the ritual. And then the action, maybe it's like you plan out, okay, for breakfast, this is what I'm going to eat. This is how I'm going to eat it. Maybe this is the situation that I'm going to eat the food in. Like, we eat the same way every single day. Like,
eat at the same spot.
Yeah. It's like, okay, this is how I'm going to be cooking this meal. This is the best way for me to do lunch that's efficient and effective, but still gets the goal done.
Maybe you're drinking coffee with it, or you're making it with it, or...
Yes. And then having that maybe be paired with, like you said, maybe it's paired with something like you're drinking the coffee or whatever, or maybe that's the time that you're having your quiet time and you're just thinking of things, or maybe you're talking to your kids during that time, or you're planning your week out or your kids' week out while you're making one of the meals, or while you're eating one of the meals,
or this podcast,
or you're listening to us while you're cooking and eating. And then having the reward could simply be you had an awesome meal and that was super fun, or it could be, great, I did another meal that I can check off the list. Like, maybe you have a calendar, or you have a thing that you're tracking of, like, every time I eat the way that I'm supposed to, I get to, like, add a check mark, or I get to, like, cross off that day.
Like in school, you get like a gold star.
Yeah, it's like a to-do list. Like, it feels so good when you get to cross something off your to-do list. Like, well, can you cross out lunch? Like, Tuesday, whatever date, I got to cross out breakfast, I got to cross out lunch, I got to cross out dinner. And that a little action of getting to, like, I did that. And when you don't get to cross it out, like, feeling that relating it to, like, oh, awesome, if I get this thing done on my to-do list, I get to check mark it, or I get to maybe have, like, maybe I get to have a sip of juice that I like, or I get to have a juice, or I get to have a little piece of chocolate, or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be maybe the same every time, but it's probably easier to have the same every time, because then you also don't have to think about what your reward is going to be. You can anticipate the excitement of it.
I think that's where like the reward and the kind of pairing it with something, you might need a little bit of trial and error, because like maybe the reward won't feel rewarding enough. You
Sure.
need to try to find something else, or that pairing with something just doesn't work in your schedule, or you know, usually you have coffee at this time, but maybe you start to adjust it so that your pairing is the coffee, even though it wouldn't be previous. And just working with things, like don't do one thing and it's like, oh, this doesn't work. It's like, well, maybe the pairing was bad. Maybe the reward wasn't good enough. That trying a few things until it sticks rather than just giving up on it immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when you break that down, a lot of the things that I think work in my life or our life, it's the same, is it's a habit. Like you said, like our day is just one big habit.
Yeah, it really is now. It used to not be. Yeah, that's, I don't know. It's kind of like we just fell into it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's kind of cool.
Because it is, like you said, like it's down to, we park in the same spot. We go to the grocery store. Like we try to use the same carts. We go in the same direction. We go like around to the store in the same ways. And
drive to the gym the same. Drive home the same. Like even like I pick the same lanes a lot of the time. And
yeah. But that allows you to also expand your mind to be able to think about other things.
Yeah.
Because you're not thinking like, I even think like driving to the gym. I'm not having to think, well, what should I do? What am I going to do when I get there? How am I going to make sure that I don't lose motivation when I step in there? How am I going to park and then like get inside and like, what am I going to do? It's like that whole time I could be thinking about fun shit. And I can just aimlessly go through that and plug and play, and then I'm done with my workout before I even know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel so done.
Yeah. Let's be done.
That's a lot of heavy things. A lot of good hitters.
Hitters. See you later.